Time for Chase or Fade, guys. So LeBron James has really put the Lakers on his back over the last 8 games since AD went down. LA is hosting the Kings. I need you to chase or fade for me here, Garion, that this is going to be a LeBron night. You need to have the most expensive player on this slate in your lineup.
I'll chase this. I think you need to have some exposure. I don't know if you ever need to have 100% exposure to any player, but I think there's still enough value on this 5-game slate, even with the news that Julius Randle might now play in tonight's games. He's moved from out to questionable, so that's something to always keep an eye on with these health and safety protocols. But we've still got 2.5 teams who have been pretty much ravaged by these protocols. So there's a ton of value. You can find the salary to put LeBron into a lineup. And look, you mentioned it, Emerson, this 8-game stretch. He's gone over 60 DraftKings points 6 times within these 8 games. He's averaging 1.74 DraftKings points per minute within this stretch. That's elite. As soon as you get up past 1.6, that's Giannis, Jokic, rarefied air. Like, if someone's going to produce like that, you just have to find some space for him in a lineup.
Okay, Nick, and then you know what? His teammate Russell Westbrook, second highest priced player as well.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of have a unique slate tonight. And even if Julius Randle does end up playing, you could throw him in there, but I don't think he has, the type of upside that we're seeing from LeBron over these last 2 or 3 weeks. I mean, even Westbrook, who is, like you said, the second most expensive available option right now, LeBron's averaging like almost 10 more DraftKings points per game than Russell Westbrook this season, which, as Garion kind of alluded to, it hasn't always been the case with LeBron. He's been the guy who, is the better real life player, who oftentimes, is devalued a little bit in fantasy, but he's kind of bucked that trend this season. I mean, he is in the midst of one of the best statistical stretches, not only of his tenure with the Lakers, not only, of the last 5 years, like his entire career. He has had very few stretches where he's been this productive for this many games in a row. And, if you want to go with Westbrook, that's fine. Westbrook's upside these last couple of weeks has been, 40s, 50s in terms of DraftKings points. For LeBron, it's been 60, 70 plus. He's approached 80 DraftKings points in a few games over the last few weeks. So, like Garion said, there's not a player that you absolutely have to have, 100% rostership across every single lineup, but LeBron's getting pretty close right now.
All right, and you got to think with AD too. Not due back anytime soon. Like LeBron's ceiling is pretty damn high right now. Nick, who you chasing as a potential value play here, dude?
Yeah, I mean, we've had so many options, almost too many to keep track of these last few weeks with all the COVID absences. And, those are starting to subside a little bit, but it doesn't look like DeAndre Ayton is going to be available for Phoenix. Now, that could change. It wouldn't be shocking if he, is kind of in the same situation as Julius Randle. He's been in protocols for over a week. So given, the new mandates, it is possible that he could test out and potentially play in this game, but he hasn't played since Christmas, long layoff, conditioning issues, all that. So Jalen Smith at 5,500, I think still makes a lot of sense tonight. No JaVale McGee, of course, for Phoenix. No Frank Kaminsky, who's been injured. So he's pretty much their only true center option and has played pretty well over these last few games after looking like mostly a disaster and a pretty major bust as a rookie. I also like Brandon Clark in Memphis. He's at 3,800 tonight. He's reemerged after kind of falling out of the rotation at the end of last season and not being much of a piece for them early on. But he's played over 20 minutes each of the last 2 games. No Kyle Anderson, no Xavier Tillman, no Zaire Williams, no Dylan Brooks for Memphis. So Brandon Clark should be able to hold on to that elevated role for at least another game or 2.
All right, Gare Bear, give me a potential value play.
I mean, it's the guy with one of the best names in the NBA, Kiefer Sykes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it's been tattooed on my forehead.
Oh wow, that looked great.
$500. The Pacers have basically had to replace their entire starting backcourt with LeVert and Brogdon in the health and safety protocols. And I will say, Rick Carlisle has finally adapted the way he's coaching this team offensively, finally letting Domantas Sabonis really be the offensive hub of this team. So it's not like the starting point guard position might mean all that much for the Indiana Pacers tonight. But when you look at Sykes versus like Dwayne Washington, who's $500 more expensive than he is probably going to see a similar amount of minutes. And you go back to their last game, it was Sykes who was second to Sabonis in both touches and potential assists. It just seems like, for better or worse, and as crazy as it sounds, he is kind of the number 2 option, or at least the number 2 facilitator on this team. So I just think he's going to have the ball in his hands quite a bit. and it's going to be hard for him not to reach 7x or 8x value with a price tag that cheap.
Garion, let's go over to the DK Sportsbook here, and it appears the Suns are the biggest favorites tonight. 8 points on the road in New Orleans, so I need you to chase or fade that they're going to cover this spread.
I think I'm going to fade, which feels weird. The Suns have just been so dominant. The Pelicans have been, I mean, really, narratively speaking, one of the biggest disasters of the 2021-22 season. But I'm a little worried about how they handle Jonas Valanciunas. Nick mentioned that their front court has just been absolutely decimated by injury and the health and safety protocols. Smith's been playing well, but he's still an undersized center, and he's about the only center they have. And he's been playing about 25 to 28 minutes. Maybe that bumps up tonight, which would make him an even better DFS play. But Valanciunas is one of the rare big men in this league that plays 35 to 40 minutes a game. I'm not saying they win this contest, but they are 4-1 ATS their last 5 home games. They're 8-7 their last 15 games overall. They've been just playing better. They've got Brandon Ingram back. He shook off the rust their last game. I think they keep this close. So I'm not saying bet them on the money line, but I would take them +8.
Yeah, Nick, it's now 7.5 point favorite.
Yeah, I'm going to go on the other side here. I like Phoenix. Like Garion laid out, the Pelicans have been a lot more respectable very quietly over the last month. I mean, I think he's right. They were probably the biggest disaster relative to expectations of this entire season, and that hasn't necessarily changed. But, they're no longer losing like 8 out of every 10 games like they were over the first 6 or 7 weeks of the season. For as dominant as Phoenix has been, they are just 9-7 against the spread on the road, so it's not like they're dominating in that regard, but they're coming off of a 34-point win over the Charlotte Hornets on Sunday. If you can handle that team that easily without DeAndre Ayton, you should be able to handle this Pelicans team. I am a little concerned, excuse me, about that Valanciunas matchup against Jalen Smith. I think that's very much a valid point by Garion. But this is a tough back-to-back situation for the Pelicans, and Brandon Ingram did come back last night from that sore Achilles. He was a game-time call. Seemed really iffy about playing on it, and publicly spoke about the concerns of playing on an Achilles issue, with what could happen there. I don't have any info on this, but I would not be shocked, if he's held out or maybe limited a little bit in this game on the second half of a back-to-back. He was 3 of 18 from the field last night, played 30-ish minutes, really didn't look like himself. So, I wouldn't be surprised if, midday we find out that he's maybe questionable for this game. And if Brandon Ingram is at all limited, then it's basically the Valanciunas show on offense. Wow. Can I talk?
You all right? Go get some green tea or something.
I feel okay. I don't know what's going on here.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Just want to make sure you're all right, dude. You look great, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, now that your throat has cleared up, Nick, let's go from the highest spread, thickest spread, longest spread on the board to the shortest one. So you have the Knicks that are 2-point favorites at home against the Pacers. So chase or fade that the home team gets it done at MSG.
Man, I was all prepared to make the case for Domantas Sabonis leading the Pacers at MSG over the Knicks. And if Julius Randle doesn't play, I think that's still the way I would lean. Both of these teams are similarly depleted. But Indiana has arguably its best player, whereas, New York, up until 7 minutes ago, we thought would for sure be without Julius Randle. And again, they still could be without Randle. It'll likely be a conditioning issue, more so than protocols, which he has officially cleared. The Knicks have lost to OKC and to Toronto by 15 points each over their last 2 games without Randle. Without having him out there, without Derrick Rose, without Kemba Walker, they have no offensive hub, and they've looked completely lost on that end of the floor. So again, if Randle doesn't play, I think that could happen again, even against the Pacers team that's pretty uninspiring on defense. You look at the ATS records, New York is just 6-12 against the spread at MSG this season. Indiana 7-3. As a road underdog. So even though they've been a disappointment, they've been able to keep these games close in these situations. And again, they still have their offensive hub in Sabonis. And hey, I mean, if Kiefer Sykes goes off, I think this is actually a decent spot for Indiana.
Who gets it done, Garion?
Yeah, I mean, I have a pretty similar answer to Nick. I was very ready to fully back the Pacers here. Just the Knicks have looked anemic on offense without Julius Randle. The last 2 games, only scoring 95.9 points per 100 possessions, easily the lowest mark in the NBA. They've really just been a team that has underwhelmed offensively for the entirety of the season when their 3-point shot isn't falling. And Derrick Rose has been a massive factor as well. I mean, when he's been on the court, they are 11 points per 100 possessions better than when he's off the court, when they've actually been kind of terrible. So those 2 players not being available would have made this an easy pick for the Pacers. As it stands right now with Randall questionable, I would just wait to bet this game. If he's out, go with the Pacers. If not, it's probably just a stay away from me. But maybe just bet the under, because I really don't bet. I really don't trust the offense for either of these teams, even if Randall does play.
So, Garion, you're not saying you're not concerned about the Pacers overlooking this game to Kyrie Irving's return tomorrow night?
I'm sure they're thrilled about that. I'm sure their game ops is getting something special right
Yeah.
probably not the biggest factor in their minds.
Yeah, it's going to be a nice welcome back video there on the Jumbotron in Indiana. Can't wait for that.
That'd be great.
Slate approved pick here, Garion. Favorite DFS or sportsbook play tonight? What do you like?
I just think you got to center a lot of lineups around Domantas Sabonis. We've talked about it a lot, but he's really just doing his best, like, Nikola Jokic light impression these past 3 games. He's averaging about 7 assists per contest on top of the massive point and rebound totals. 58 DraftKings points per game across the last 3. There's really no reason to think that is going to dissipate at all. And if Randall doesn't play, I know Mitchell Robinson is also questionable. He'll probably be on a minutes limit anyway. This is a super undersized Knicks team. They are missing essentially their entire front court, or have the possibility to be missing their entire front court. I mean, Sabonis might go for like 20-20 tonight. He really should just dominate the glass.
All right, Nick, what do you like, man? You got a favorite DFS play or sportsbook play tonight?
Yeah, I mean, you can look at Sabonis, points, rebounds, assist props. I think that makes a lot of sense. And Garion touched on one of mine as well, the under in that Pacers-Knicks game, which has gone up from 206 to 207 in light of the Randall news. That, to me, that doesn't really matter. I think both these teams are really going to struggle to score. I still do like Phoenix minus 7.5 against New Orleans. I know we're split on that one, but I think there's a decent amount of value there. And then to go back to Lakers-Kings, which we touched on at the beginning of the segment, you can get LeBron and Russ to each score at least 25 points at plus money. That's plus 230. And you can get LeBron to have at least 35 points and at least 10 rebounds. That's plus 350. Both of those, especially the second one, seem especially feasible to me. LeBron, the assists have kind of lagged behind playing alongside Westbrook, but the rebounding has been there night in, night out. The scoring obviously has been there. So I like that one at plus 350.